These 7 motorcycles will be worthless in 2026. If you bought a Harley-Davidson Street 500 in 2022, thinking it was a solid investment, you lost $8,000 in resale value before you even left the dealership. And you're not the only one. Right now, 7 specific motorcycle models are experiencing catastrophic depreciation that most riders don't see coming. Industry analysts at Kelley Blue Book are calling this the Great Motorcycle Correction, a market shift that's wiping out decades of assumed value. This happened because manufacturers flooded the market with models nobody actually wanted, while electric alternatives gained serious traction. We're talking about bikes losing 60 to 80% of their value in just 24 months. So if you own any of these 7 models, you need to act before 2026 hits. Here's the data that changes everything about motorcycle investing. Hit subscribe now if you want to protect your motorcycle investments. The models we're covering are losing value daily. But before we start, the motorcycle industry experienced a true golden age from 2010 to 2020. During this decade, manufacturers masterfully convinced riders that each new model represented not just transportation, but a genuine investment opportunity. Marketing campaigns shifted from highlighting performance specs to emphasizing resale value and collector potential. This messaging created a powerful psychology around motorcycle ownership. The idea that buying the right bike meant you weren't spending money, you were allocating assets. This mindset shift coincided perfectly with the explosive growth of the adventure touring segment. Manufacturers recognized that riders wanted bikes that photographed beautifully against epic landscapes, even if most owners never ventured beyond gravel roads. The Instagram effect became a genuine market force. Suddenly, bikes weren't judged primarily on their mechanical merit, but on their social media presence. Adventure bikes, with impractical seat heights, crushing weight, and fragile electronic systems, commanded premium prices because they looked the part of the rugged explorer, even when the data showed most never left pavement. The retro revival further accelerated this trend. Triumph, Royal Enfield, and others capitalized on nostalgia by creating modern motorcycles with vintage aesthetics. These bikes commanded premium prices despite often incorporating unproven technology beneath their classic styling. The market accepted higher price points for the aesthetic, even when reliability data suggested caution was warranted. Perhaps most significantly, this period saw European manufacturers quietly shifting production to Chinese facilities while maintaining premium European pricing. Partnerships with Chinese manufacturers like Lanxin Zongshan and QJ Motor enabled brands to flood Western markets with bikes that carried prestigious badges but contained components sourced from the same factories producing budget Asian motorcycles. The economics were undeniable. Production costs plummeted, while retail prices remained anchored to European expectations. Meanwhile, the first generation of electric motorcycle startups emerged with Tesla-inspired promises. Companies like Zero, Energica, and Lightning captured investor imagination with claims of imminent revolutionary technology. Early adopters paid premium prices for what were essentially prototype-level products, operating under the assumption that software updates would eventually deliver promised performance. These companies raised capital based on future potential rather than current capabilities, creating a disconnect between price and actual product value. By 2019, the industry had reached unprecedented heights. U.S. motorcycle sales exceeded 500,000 units annually, with premium models driving significant profit margin. Adventure bikes routinely commanded $15,000 to $20,000 price tags, with waiting lists stretching 6 months or longer for popular models like the BMW R1250 GS and KTM 1290 Adventure. Dealers operated with leverage they'd never before experienced, often selling bikes above MSRP with minimal incentives. The culture of motorcycle ownership underwent a fundamental transformation. Owning multiple specialized motorcycles became a lifestyle statement rather than addressing transportation needs. The N+1 philosophy, where the ideal number of motorcycles is always one more than you currently own, became standard among enthusiasts. Garage spaces that once housed single utilitarian bikes now showcase collections of specialized machines for different riding scenarios, many accumulating minimal mileage. Social media accelerated this shift dramatically. Platforms like Instagram and YouTube created insatiable demand for photogenic motorcycles regardless of their practical performance or reliability metrics. Bikes were purchased specifically for their ability to generate compelling content rather than for their engineering integrity. Motorcycles like Ducati's Scrambler series and Triumph's Bonneville variants became social media darlings, despite middling performance and questionable long-term reliability data. This convergence of factors created an unprecedented market anomaly. motorcycles that seemingly defied traditional depreciation curves. Between 2015 and 2019, select models actually appreciated in value during the first 12 to 24 months of ownership if kept in pristine condition. This completely inverted the traditional vehicle depreciation model and reinforced the motorcycle as investment psychology. The data seemed to suggest a new paradigm had emerged, one where the right motorcycle purchase could be financially prudent rather than merely recreational. The first cracks in this seemingly invincible market appeared with the implementation of Euro 5 emission standards. These regulations forced manufacturers to abandon proven, reliable engine designs in favor of untested compliance solutions. Engineers who had spent decades refining air-cooled platforms suddenly found themselves redesigning entire powertrains around emissions equipment. The result was often motorcycles that met regulatory requirements on paper, but suffered significant reliability compromises in real-world conditions. Euro 5 compliance became such an urgent priority that proper development cycles were compressed or bypassed entirely. Models that would normally undergo 3 to 5 years of development and testing were rushed to market in 18 to 24 months. This acceleration inevitably led to compromises in durability testing, thermal management solutions, and long-term reliability assessment. The market was about to be flooded with motorcycles that were essentially beta test models being sold as finished products. Simultaneously, electric vehicle technology began advancing at a pace traditional manufacturers couldn't match. While the motorcycle industry was still debating whether electric power represented a viable future, companies like Tesla demonstrated that consumer appetite for electric vehicles was real and growing. Traditional motorcycle manufacturers found themselves caught between regulatory pressures to reduce emissions and the technological challenge of developing competitive electric platforms. Most chose half measures, developing compliance-focused internal combustion engine while making minimal investments in genuine electric alternatives. This technological disruption coincided with a critical demographic shift. The aging of traditional motorcycle buyers, particularly in the cruiser and touring segments, created looming demand problems. Data showed the average motorcycle buyer's age had increased from 32 in 1990 to 48 by 2018. Younger generations demonstrated different transportation preferences, gravitating toward urban mobility solutions rather than traditional motorcycles. Manufacturers responded by doubling down on their existing buyer base rather than fundamentally rethinking their product offering for emerging demographics. The COVID pandemic then exposed a critical vulnerability in the industry's business model. Supply chain disruptions revealed just how dependent premium motorcycle brands had become on lowest bidder Chinese components. Motorcycles bearing Italian, Austrian, and British badges suddenly couldn't be produced because key components from Chinese suppliers were unavailable. This disruption lifted the veil on the industry's production realities and forced uncomfortable questions about pricing structures built on prestige rather than manufacturing costs. The numbers painted an increasingly concerning picture. Motorcycle sales dropped 23% from their 2019 peak to 2023, while dealer inventory levels remained artificially high. This imbalance created pricing pressure that manufacturers attempted to offset through increasingly aggressive financing offers. 18-month 0% financing became common as dealers struggled to move inventory that previously sold itself. More alarming was the 40% increase in warranty claim rates on specific compliance-focused models. As these motorcycles accumulated real-world mileage, design compromises made to meet regulatory deadlines revealed themselves in premature component failures. Issues that would normally be identified and resolved during extended development cycles began appearing in customer hands, creating both financial and reputational costs for manufacturers. Dealer networks began consolidating as profit margins on new motorcycle sales collapsed. The business model that had sustained independent dealerships for decades, healthy margins on new motorcycle sales supported by service and accessory revenue, became increasingly untenable. Larger dealer groups acquired struggling independents, further concentrating market power and reducing consumer option for both purchase and service. Faced with these converging challenges, motorcycle manufacturers made a fateful strategic choice. Rather than extending development cycles to ensure new compliance-focused motorcycles met traditional reliability standards, they prioritized meeting regulatory deadlines at almost any cost. This decision prioritized short-term market presence over long-term product viability, creating a generation of motorcycles with fundamentally compromised engineering integrity. The rush to meet Euro 4 and Euro 5 compliance deadlines meant manufacturers shipped motorcycles with known engineering limitations, operating under the assumption that post-launch updates would address emerging issues. Models were released with beta version engine management software, untested emissions equipment, and thermal management systems that proved inadequate for real-world conditions. The KTM 790 Adventure, for instance, reached dealerships with a camshaft design that would later require complete replacement across the model line. Electric motorcycle startups made similarly problematic choices. Companies like Zero, Energica, and Lightning raised capital and released products based on promised capabilities rather than proven technology. Early adopters essentially funded ongoing R&D by purchasing first-generation products at premium prices. These motorcycles were marketed as finished consumer goods despite essentially being development prototypes with dealer networks. Battery technology and motor control systems that were still evolving became the foundation for products carrying $20,000 plus price tags and minimal warranty protection. Legacy brands made perhaps the most damaging decision of all, licensing their prestigious names to Chinese manufacturers without maintaining adequate quality control standards. Brands like Benelli, MV Agusta, and even Harley-Davidson, through its Street Series, authorized production of motorcycles bearing their badges while exercising minimal oversight of component sourcing, assembly standards, or long-term parts availability. This created motorcycles with premium price tags, but budget-level engineering integrity. Between 2018 and 2022, the market was flooded with Euro 4 and Euro 5 compliance motorcycles that dealers themselves weren't properly trained to service. Complex emission control systems, new generation engine management computers, and untested component designs arrived at dealerships faster than technical training materials could be developed. This created a service support gap where neither manufacturers nor dealers were fully prepared to address emerging reliability issues. High-performance sport bikes suffered particularly from the compliance rush. Models like Ducati's V4 series and KTM's RC and Duke lines were pushed to market with known thermal management issues to meet competitive deadlines. These motorcycles delivered impressive specification performance, but often suffered reliability compromises that only became apparent after warranty periods expired. The Ducati Vive 4's valve train issues and KTM's well-documented radiator limitations exemplify design compromises that prioritize launch dates over long-term durability. Adventure bikes, despite their rugged appearance, arrived with fundamental design flaws that only revealed themselves under genuine adventure conditions. The first-generation Triumph Tiger 900, BMW F850 GS, and Harley-Davidson Pan America all suffered from electronic and suspension issues that became apparent only after extended off-road use. These motorcycles were marketed extensively to weekend warriors, despite engineering compromises that made them unsuitable for the very activities featured in their promotional materials. Perhaps most concerning was the flood of entry-level motorcycles built to price points that guaranteed premature component failure. Models like the Honda CB300R, Royal Enfield Himalayan 411, and various Chinese manufactured options under Western badges were designed with such narrow engineering margins that even routine use led to predictable failures. These motorcycles targeted new riders, but delivered experiences that often discouraged long-term participation in motorcycling. The reaction from the motorcycling community was swift and severe as these issues became impossible to ignore. Motorcycle forums transformed from enthusiasm-focused communities to virtual support groups for owners experiencing identical failures across specific models. Threads documenting KTM 790/890 camshaft wear issues, Ducati V4 valve problems, and BMW R1250 GS transmission failures accumulated thousands of posts as patterns emerged that manufacturers initially denied. Class action lawsuits materialized against multiple manufacturers. KTM faced legal action over premature camshaft wear that affected virtually every 790/890 platform motorcycle. Zero motorcycles encountered litigation regarding battery degradation that occurred far earlier than advertised, effectively stranding owners with motorcycles that retained less than 70% of their original range within 3 years of purchase. Electric motorcycle owners made a particularly disturbing discovery. Their $20,000 plus purchases had become effectively worthless when battery replacement costs exceeded the bike's market value. Early Zero S and DS models, for instance, required battery replacements costing $8,000 to $10,000 after approximately 1,000 charging cycles. Yet the motorcycles themselves had depreciated to $5,000 to $7,000 market values. This created financial total loss scenarios where repair costs exceeded replacement costs. Adventure bike owners found themselves stranded with electronic suspension failures that dealers couldn't adequately address. The BMW R1250GS and KTM 1290 Adventure, flagship models costing $20,000 plus, suffered from electronic suspension control modules that failed predictably at around 20,000 miles, requiring $3,000 plus repairs that weren't covered under warranty extensions. These failures occurred on motorcycles specifically marketed for remote travel, creating genuinely dangerous situations for riders in isolated locations. The financial implications for manufacturers became impossible to conceal. Warranty extension programs began appearing across the industry as defect patterns became undeniable. KTM's $50 million warranty reserve increase, specifically for 790/890 engine repairs, represented an unprecedented admission of systematic failure. BMW initiated a quiet buyback program for certain R1250GS models with transmission issues rather than facing the public relations damage of a formal recall. Dealer networks began refusing trade-ins on specific models due to known reliability issues and parts availability problems. Motorcycles that had commanded premium prices new became effectively unsellable on the used market. Once certain failure patterns became widely documented, models like the first-generation Ducati Multistrada 5.4, Harley-Davidson Pan America, and essentially all Chinese-manufactured Benelli models saw trade-in values collapse as dealers refused to accept the inventory risk. Insurance companies began classifying certain motorcycles as total loss for repairs exceeding 60% of value, a threshold previously reserved for crash damage. Electronic control module failures on premium European motorcycles routinely triggered this threshold, creating situations where minor technical issues rendered motorcycles financially totaled due to parts and labor costs. This insurance industry response further accelerated depreciation as actuarial data identified specific models as financial liabilities. Online marketplaces became flooded with low-mileage premium motorcycles being sold as is by owners cutting their losses. Motorcycles with known defect patterns appeared with descriptions like "needs ECU work" or "minor electrical issues," euphemisms for systematic failures that would cost thousands to properly address. These listings created further downward pressure on values as market transparency revealed just how common these issues had become. The financial impact across specific manufacturers has been devastating. Royal Enfield was forced into a complete redesign of the Himalayan model after acknowledging the 411 cubic centimeters version suffered from fundamental frame and engine mount issues. The newly released 450 cubic centimeters version effectively orphaned the previous generation, with parts support already becoming problematic despite the bike being less than 5 years old. Zero Motorcycles faces ongoing class action suits regarding battery replacement costs that exceed the original purchase prices of their motorcycles. Early adopters who paid premium prices for first-generation Zero models discovered that replacement battery packs cost $10,000 to $12,000, often more than the entire motorcycle was worth on the used market. This created the unprecedented situation where routine maintenance rendered the vehicle financially non-viable. KTM's $50 million warranty reserve increase, specifically for 790/890 Adventure, camshaft replacements represents one of the largest reliability-focused financial hits in motorcycle industry history. The issue affected virtually every motorcycle built on this platform between 2018 and 2021, creating a situation where KTM effectively acknowledged that an entire generation of their motorcycles contained a fundamental design flaw requiring complete engine disassembly to address. Dealers for brands like Benelli, CFMOTO, and Hyosung began closing as parts availability disappeared and customer confidence collapsed. These brands, which heavily utilized Chinese manufacturing partnerships, discovered that parts support vanished when production tooling changed or manufacturing partnerships evolved. Motorcycles less than 5 years old became effectively unrepairable as replacement components simply ceased to exist in the supply chain. Manufacturer leadership responses have been particularly telling. Rather than acknowledging fundamental issues, most have quietly discontinued problem models without admission of fault or commitment to long-term parts support. Ducati's first-generation Multistrada 5.4, despite being a flagship model, was rapidly replaced by a substantially revised version with minimal acknowledgement of the valve train issues that plagued the original. This pattern of quiet replacement, rather than transparent correction, has been consistent across premium brands. Electric motorcycle startups have pivoted away from their original missions as their hardware proved unmarketable. Zero has increasingly focused on fleet sales rather than consumer markets, as retail customers became aware of the brand's battery longevity issues. Energica shifted focus to racing applications after consumer models failed to gain traction due to reliability concerns. These pivots represent tacit acknowledgement that first-generation products failed to deliver on their fundamental promises. Traditional manufacturers have attempted to distance themselves from Chinese manufacturing partners while remaining stuck with existing inventory produced through these arrangements. Harley-Davidson's quiet discontinuation of the Street Series after quality issues became undeniable exemplifies this approach. BMW's termination of its manufacturing partnership with Lansin after persistent G310 reliability problems demonstrates how these arrangements have damaged even the most prestigious brands. Industry executives have publicly claimed these issues represent a normal market correction, while privately acknowledging systematic quality failures. Internal documents from manufacturer planning meetings reveal awareness of these problems years before public acknowledgement, with discussions focused on managing financial exposure rather than implementing genuine solutions for affected customers. 3 fundamental failures converge to create this unprecedented market situation. First, the compliance rush fundamentally compromised product integrity. Manufacturers prioritized meeting regulatory deadlines over ensuring long-term viability and parts availability. The push to achieve Euro 4 and Euro 5 compliance created a generation of motorcycles with sophisticated emissions control systems that were inadequately tested for real-world conditions. These systems often failed prematurely, creating repair scenarios that exceeded the motorcycle's depreciated values. The rushed compliance approach created orphaned models with proprietary components that became obsolete within 36 months of release. Motorcycles like the Ducati Scrambler 1100, KTM 790 Adventure, and BMW F 750 GS represented significant engineering departures from previous generations, utilizing unique components not shared with other models. When these motorcycles demonstrated systematic reliability issues, manufacturers often chose to abandon the platforms entirely, rather than develop long-term support solutions. Chinese manufacturing partnerships further complicated this situation. When tooling changed or partnerships dissolved, owners discovered that replacement components simply ceased to exist. Motorcycles from brands like Benelli, CF Moto, and even certain KTM models manufactured by CF Moto became effectively unrepairable when specific electronic or engine components failed. The business model simply didn't include provisions for long-term parts support, independent of ongoing manufacturing relationships. Second, the electric motorcycle industry essentially conducted a public beta test at consumers' expense. Early electric motorcycles from Zero, Energica, Lightning, and others were sold as finished products when they were effectively expensive prototypes. These motorcycles incorporated first-generation battery and motor controller technology that evolved so rapidly that 2019 models became technically obsolete before their financing was paid off. Battery technology proved particularly problematic. Early electric motorcycles utilized battery chemistry that degraded more rapidly than advertised, creating range reductions of 30 to 40% within 3 years of regular use. Replacement costs for these battery packs exceeded the motorcycle's residual values, creating financial total loss scenarios from normal component wear. Zero's early models demonstrated battery degradation to 70% capacity within approximately 30,000 miles, far short of the 100,000-plus mile expectations created by marketing materials. Motor controller and power management systems similarly lacked the refinement necessary for long-term reliability. These complex electronic components failed at rates far exceeding those of traditional motorcycle electronics, creating repair scenarios costing $3,000 to $5,000 on motorcycles that had depreciated to $8,000 to $12,000 market values. The fundamental economics simply didn't support keeping these motorcycles operational beyond initial warranty periods. Third, manufacturers made a catastrophic gamble prioritizing performance specifications over proven reliability. High-performance motorcycles were pushed beyond sustainable engineering tolerances in pursuit of impressive specification sheets. Models like the Ducati V4, KTM Super Duke, and even the BMW S1000RR incorporated designs that operated so close to mechanical limits that long-term durability was inevitably compromised. Thermal management proved particularly problematic. Engines designed to meet both emissions regulations and performance expectations often generated heat that couldn't be adequately dissipated through available cooling systems. This created accelerated wear on components like valve guides, piston rings, and head gaskets, parts that would typically last 50,000 plus miles on previous generation engines, but now required replacement at 15,000 to 20,000 miles. Complex electronic systems became single points of failure that rendered entire motorcycles inoperable. Premium models increasingly incorporated electronic control units, managing everything from throttle response to suspension settings. When these components failed, as they did with alarming regularity on certain models, the motorcycles became completely inoperable until replacement parts could be sourced and programmed. These repairs routinely cost $2,000 to $4,000, often exceeding 50% of the motorcycle's depreciated value within 3 to 5 years of purchase. The current market reality is undeniable. 7 specific motorcycle categories are now experiencing 60 to 80% depreciation rates within 24 to 36 months of original purchase. Number 7. Harley-Davidson Street Series. These Indian-manufactured Harleys have seen catastrophic 78% depreciation in just 36 months. The 500 cubic centimeters and 750 cubic centimeters models that retailed for $6,899 and $7,599 respectively in 2019 now fetch less than $1,500 on the used market due to persistent reliability issues and Harley's decision to abandon the platform entirely. Parts availability has already become problematic despite the motorcycles being relatively recent, and dealer networks increasingly refuse these bikes as trade-ins regardless of condition. Number 6. First-generation Zero electric motorcycles. Early adopters of Zero's S, DS, and FX models have witnessed its 75% value erosion within 24 months of purchase. Models that commanded $15,000 to $18,000 price tags, new, now struggle to sell for $4,000 to $5,000 due to battery degradation issues and replacement costs that exceed the bike's market value. The rapid evolution of electric motorcycle technology has rendered these early models obsolete, with newer versions offering substantially improved range and performance at similar price points. Number 5. Chinese-manufactured premium badges. Motorcycles like the Benelli TRK 502, CFMOTO 700CL-X, and QJ motor-produced models carrying historic European badges have depreciated 72% within their first 36 months. These motorcycles, which retail for $6,000 to $9,000 new, often sell for less than $2,000 on the used market, regardless of condition or mileage. Parts availability issues and dealer network collapse have created a situation where these motorcycles become effectively unrepairable once out of warranty. Number 4. KTM 790/890. Platform. Perhaps the most dramatic premium brand collapse. KTM 790 and 890 models have experienced 68% depreciation in just 24 months. These motorcycles, which retailed for $12,000 to $14,000 new in 2019 to 2021, now commonly sell for $4,000 to $5,000 due to well-documented camshaft and engine reliability issues. Despite KTM's warranty extension programs, the market has rendered a harsh verdict on these models' long-term viability. Number 3. First-generation Euro 5 Ducatis. The first Ducati models rushed to meet Euro 5 compliance, particularly the Multistrada 5.4 and Street Fighter 5.4, have seen 65% value erosion within 36 months. These flagship motorcycles, which commanded $20,000 to $25,000 price tags new, now frequently appear on the used market below $8,000 due to valve train issues and electronic reliability problems. Ducati's quick replacement with revised versions has accelerated this depreciation by effectively acknowledging the original model's deficiencies. Number 2. Royal Enfield Himalayan 411. The original Himalayan model has depreciated 62% within 24 months, as frame cracking issues and electrical problems became widely documented. These motorcycles, which retailed for $4,999 new, now routinely sell for less than $1,800, regardless of condition. Royal Enfield's release of the completely redesigned Himalayan 450 effectively orphaned the previous generation, with parts support already becoming problematic. Number 1. Premium Adventure. Bikes with electronic suspension. Flagship adventure motorcycles like the BMW R 1250 GS with electronic suspension, KTM 1290 Super Adventure, and Ducati Multistrada 5 4S have experienced 60% depreciation within 36 months. These motorcycles, which commanded $20,000 to $25,000 price tags new, now commonly sell for $8,000 to $10,000 due to expensive electronic suspension failures and complex emission system issues. The repair costs often exceed 50% of the motorcycle's market value, creating total loss scenarios from relatively minor technical issues. Dealers are increasingly refusing trade-ins on these models, effectively making them unsellable through traditional channels. Private party sales represent the only viable option for owners looking to exit these motorcycles, creating a buyer's market where informed purchasers demand substantial discounts, knowing the potential repair liabilities they're assuming. Parts availability is rapidly disappearing for compliance-era motorcycles as manufacturers abandon support for models they'd rather forget. Electronic control module, emissions equipment, and specialized engine components are becoming unavailable even for motorcycles less than 5 years old, creating potential bricking scenarios where otherwise functional motorcycles become inoperable due to minor component failures. The real lesson here extends beyond specific models to fundamental market principles. Innovation without infrastructure creates stranded assets. Motorcycles that function today but become paperweights tomorrow when critical components fail and replacements don't exist. The industry's pursuit of quarterly profits over long-term reliability has created the largest depreciation event in modern motorcycle history. Regulatory compliance rushed to market creates orphaned products with no sustainable future. Manufacturers that prioritize meeting deadlines over engineering integrity have created entire model generations that will effectively vanish from roads as parts support disappears. These motorcycles represent depreciating assets with definite end-of-life timelines regardless of mechanical condition or owner care. By 2026, these 7 motorcycle categories will conclusively prove that not all vehicles are investments. Some are just expensive lessons in corporate short-sightedness. The market correction currently underway isn't just changing values, it's redefining which motorcycles deserve to be considered genuine transportation assets versus disposable consumer products. So here's my question to you. Are you riding one of these 7 motorcycles that's about to become worthless? Or did you avoid the trap? Let me know in the comments which of these hits closest to home.